Go!
It's like a train accelerating, isn't it? That sound. You want each stroke just gets a bit quicker than the last one, a bit sharper. Beautiful, controlled starts. You don't want to rip the water. You need to lever and let the boat get moving, like a flywheel starting to turn.
Yeah, absolutely. They're like freight trains. They get moving pretty slowly, but when they're moving, they're pretty unstoppable. I watched this Leander crew on Wednesday race against the Ivy Club from Princeton, and they were so mature in the way they went about their race. They were actually in a pretty similar position at this stage, and they managed to turn it around. But what Leander needs to make sure, and what they did on Wednesday really well, was stay in touch with the crew that were leading, and they need to make sure they hang on to the coattails of this fast-starting Dutch boat.
Well, 2 freight trains underway, but for my money, the Dutch have got a bit of an express engine at the moment. They really have gone for it, haven't they? Really pulling it out. And look at that. Beautifully calm. You wouldn't think that these women were producing that level of power when you look at the faces and the shoulders. I love the way the Dutch row, particularly Dutch women's rowing, actually some of the best examples of technical rowing you can see. And Leander really need to respond because they are losing touch at this early point of the race.
Yeah, the Dutch have such a unique style. Beautiful to watch. It's so remarkable in the way that they just grip the water out front, they move the boat, they lever it along, and at the moment Leander, home favourites, they're going to have a mighty roar as they come past the enclosures. They're going to need to do a lot more in this opening exchange to stay in touch, because this Dutch boat, full of under-23 development talent, the next generation leading into the Los Angeles Olympic Games, expecting great things from this Dutch contingent.
So we're around 500 metres into the race, and it's tough times now for Leander. They are out of touch now. They've got clear water behind the Dutch women's crew. Let's see how this unfolds. Will Leander be able to respond in this heat of the Remenham Challenge Cup? So these women have gone out like an express train. Beautiful blade work, beautiful composure, and they are getting a real dividend for their technical excellence combined with power here over Leander. Just look at that. We want to understand how to row with calmness and looseness, but also power and pace. You could do worse than watch this video a couple of times. You barely see any exertion on those faces, and yet those legs are going down like pistons.
Coached by Peter Veersum, who was the architect behind that the Netherlands men's 8, Beijing, London and Rio. So it's no surprise to me to see this Dutch boat with such a unique, just fluid, languid almost style. They just make rowing look easy, which I think is critical to anybody who's joining us for the first time watching this Henley Royal Regatta live stream. Rowing can be fast and can be simple and can look like it's been brought out of a museum. It's really, really strong from this Dutch boat.
Tom, the key word you said there for me is simplicity. The simpler a sport looks, the more likely it is it's been done really well, and I think the Dutch make it look super simple. And it's always hard to achieve that when you're sort of behind, and now for Leander, the Dutch are out of view. They've got to rely on their cocks to tell them what's going on in the race and to give them that sort of motivation. I thought, as you said, Leander, pretty impressive early in the week and rode with real maturity. I think they were delighted to beat the Ivy crew from the US.
Yeah, they certainly were. This is a development boat from Leander Club, famed, of course, for producing a lot of Olympic talent. In this 2024 Henley Royal Regatta, we've got a lot of development crews, a lot of under-23 potential, people on the pathway to the Los Angeles Olympic Games, and this crew from Holland on the left-hand side, one example of what to expect in the upcoming Olympiad once we get past the Paris Games, which start in about 3 weeks' time. And Leander, maybe some of these athletes will learn a thing or two from this Dutch crew who have just put a couple of lengths into them in just the last 500 or so metres.
Yeah, really beautiful rowing. Just looking here at the sort of blade work, I'm looking at the spoons with the Netherlands colours going into the water. They don't go super deep. Nice flat profile of the stroke there, just sort of pushing it along. And you get, people who are not rowers or haven't tried rowing often think about rowing as a sort of pulling sport, but actually you can see from this crew that it's really a pushing sport. You put the spoon in the water and you push the boat past it, and that's exactly what they're doing. No wasted power, everything in sympathy with the water.
Yeah, it's beautifully balanced. It really is. And just looking at some of this boat, they were third at the Poznan World Rowing Cup. That was the last World Rowing Cup in this year's series. So they're a crew who've spent some time together. They actually came over in January to race in the UK in the boat race fixtures. So they've had experience on English water. And I think they didn't have the best experience racing Cambridge on the Thames, and they're back on that same stretch of water, albeit slightly further upstream, and enjoying themselves now. And I think as I watch this Dutch crew come down, you have to say the margin that they're putting into Leander here, they have to be a crew to watch going into the weekend.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. I was just looking at their cox, Aniek van Venen, who is a world silver medalist, keeping a glance, keeping an eye on what's going on. And this is where, I guess, her experience really comes into play, because they want to make sure that they stay ahead, but they also want to conserve the energy with a view to what's coming. But they want to stay in the moment of the race and make sure they're just drilling that technical rowing and getting familiar with where they are on the course, so that they're really now training for the next day's racing.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And if you watch the comparison between this Dutch boat just moving up towards, or past, I should say, Remenham Club, and compare it in contrast to the Leander crew, who obviously we always expect the crew that's losing the race, that's behind, to look a little more flustered, a little more agitated. That Dutch crew have so much sort of composure and style. And Leander, as I say, we haven't seen this crew out on the water before Henley Royal Regatta. They won on Wednesday. They've just come up against the classier crew here on the Friday. But what a phenomenal learning curve for these young women.
Yeah, you know, you win or you learn, and this is a new crew. It's a tough order to go against such a class crew as the Dutch, who many of them have rowed together in different combinations over time and raced some of the toughest opposition. They came over to train against the Cambridge University crew in the early part of this year. They raced in various combinations in the Hollandia. And for a new crew, a development crew from Leander, well, this is a very, very credible performance. But you can see the commanding lead that the Dutch have. And actually the conditions, I'd say, Tom, you know, really tricky this morning, and we've seen since lunch interval they've calmed down a little bit. We're seeing competitors having less difficulty with the water and the wind, which is great, because it just means that you can totally focus on the rowing.
This is the flattest water I think we've seen all week, Matt, so it's a good opportunity for crews to exhibit their technical proficiency. And that Dutch crew now, this is the Friday of Henley Royal Regatta, we're into the business end of proceedings, and they are able to just put on a clinic of Dutch rowing here in front of the admittedly frequented umbrellas there in the steward's enclosure. So it might be coming down a little bit, but actually the water is flat, the wind has dropped, and it's perfect rowing conditions out there.
Yeah, the rain is falling. That's given some flatness and some calmness here, but the calmness and the flat rowing stroke of the Dutch women is what's equipped them so well to go through this brilliantly executed race plan, holding off Leander quite comfortably through the race as they cross the line to take the victory and put their names down for the next round of this fantastic Remenham Challenge Cup for Club Women's 8. So that is a win for Hollandia Roeiclub from the Netherlands over Leander.